Sponsored by War Thunder. Project Zomboid is full of zombies. But what if that wasn't the case? What if one were to disable zombie respawning as well as migration and create a character with one goal in mind? Go to the extreme lengths and achieve total liberation of the Knox exclusion zone. Nearly 2 years ago, this is exactly what I set out to accomplish, and my life hasn't been the same since. I granted this duty of clearing Kentucky upon the one and only individual capable of such a task, the Peepeepoopoo Man. Without the use of fire and only one chance at this monumental task, I set out on this lengthy journey with the help of this mini-map mod, which lets me see any zombie within my chunk. The challenge simply wouldn't have been possible without it. Little did I know, this simple idea would turn into 3 standalone episodes, which I have decided to stitch together to create a chronological and more comfortable viewing experience. And because I'm a disingenuous sellout, there will be death, there will be destruction, and through the power of war crimes, not a single zombie will stand in my way. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the saga of the Peepeepoopoo Man. Before we begin, let me quickly go over my character's trait build. First, we'll cover the negative traits. You might have realized that my character is entirely covered in bandages. This is due to the burn ward patient trait, which makes me useless in hand-to-hand combat for around the first week. However, it gives me a whopping 18 points to work with. Next, I decided to go with deprived, with the hopes of spawning the Rosewood police department. And since I'm killing literally everything, I decided to pick conspicuous. It's time to move on to the positive traits. To counter my early game combat disadvantage, I decided to pick lead foot. Stomping is going to be my only viable combat tactic for the time being. I invested my leftover points into hardy, evasive, gym goer, and other bread and butter traits. For the occupation, I decided to go with lumberjack for the unique axeman trait. This build is absolutely overpowered, and you'll see why later. By sheer luck, I spawned in the Rosewood police department, and almost immediately, an alarm went off. Well, that's just great. I geared up and faced my first zombies. Just you two? Okay. Oh, no, there's a lot more than 2. With the help of this door, all I had to do was tip them over and stomp their heads in. Oh, there's more. After killing the last one, I carefully made my way outside through the back, and very slowly made my way to the fire department. This is where I would build my HQ. Inside, there were a lot of useful weapons and even a sledgehammer. Oh, yes, sir! I'm sure I wouldn't forget about this item's existence later on. I got myself situated, killed the zombies that were around the building, blocked off the stairs, and went to bed. Next morning, I set out on a supply run to the neighborhood. I looted a cruiser, found a key for this working car, which was a godsend this early on. Hey, we got a car. A chainsaw, and a boomstick. Give me this. After looting a bit more, I returned home and brought all the spoils upstairs. The next few days were spent watching TV shows for skill points, exercising, finding out that I can overdose on pills, thanks to a mod. Wait, what the fuck? Overdose? I should probably stop taking those painkillers then. Watching more shows, exercising even more, and then watching even more shows. Hold on, this isn't life and living. Buckle your focus, fellas, because global mutually assured destruction is just a week away. And there's no better way to prepare for World War III than with today's video sponsor, War Thunder. Against the advice of my imaginary therapist, I continue to put way too much time into this game. The immersion and realism is simply unmatched. And it reminds me of simpler times. You see this tank? They made it into a real thing. And that's just one of 2,500 vehicles that you can take into battle from 10 different major nations spanning 100 years of history. To be able to pilot the planes and helicopters, control tanks and ships, you need either a barely functional computer, an Xbox or PlayStation, and sheer fucking will. Because this game is absolutely free. But that's not everything. The game's graphics are beautiful, and despite this, it runs on even the shittiest of devices, including your phone. That's right, War Thunder is now also available on mobile, so you can play even while in line for your post-state exam. The snail calls your name, and you will play War Thunder whether you like it or not. So sign up for free using the links below to receive a generous bonus containing premium vehicles, silver lions, and 7 days of premium account time. This offer is available for new as well as returning players after 6 months, on PC and console, only for a limited time. Dude, what the hell was that? Did they cancel Woodcraft? Wait, what's that noise? Oh shit, that's not good. What do I do? On day 7, the helicopter had arrived. However, I was not in fighting shape yet. However, I did block the way upstairs beforehand and set up some escape ropes in case of an emergency. The next day, my wounds finally healed. Hell yeah, I'm healed! And as I was chilling in my base, another alarm went off. You have got to be kidding me, right? This time, right next to the fire department. Oh my god. It's right there. Which alerted hundreds of zombies to my location. I couldn't fight this. Not yet. I had to quickly pack all of my things and leave. As I was about to finish, they made their way inside. Oh sh**. I opened the garage and swiftly got in my car. Go away. However, in the hurry, I left the most important thing upstairs. What? Where the hell are my keys? Turns out, I had left my car keys on the floor upstairs. Way to go, Slavic. Get out, get out. Oh my god. Shit! Get up right now. Oh, that's not good. Get. Oh! How the f am I alive? After dodging the hordes of zombies and circling around the building, I used the emergency rope to climb back upstairs. There's the keys. Grab him. Get in, get in, get in, get in. Go, go, go. I hastily went east, towards an isolated house in the forest. Alright, I don't know how, but I made it. Christ. After clearing the area and calming down, I recollected my thoughts. Not even 10 days in, and I already almost sold the entire challenge over a pair of keys, which would have been really embarrassing. I need to focus up and lock the fuck in, because I've got a lot of work ahead of me. So after I got myself situated, I headed towards the nearby school next morning. What the f? To look for useful skill books. Yes! After raiding the library, I decided to test out a BB gun that I found in some random kid's locker. This thing is surprisingly powerful. There we go, aiming 2. Alright, it's time for the big horde. Come at me. I am fighting a horde with a BB gun. This shouldn't be possible. Rita's gun mode is absolutely stupid. Yeah, as silly as this weapon is, I'm not gonna use it. It's way too powerful for what it is. Following this little skirmish, the search for books continued into day 10, when I decided to visit the local bookstore. However, I was also keeping a lookout for a semi-truck, which will have its use later. Unable to find all the books I wanted, I exited out the back door and got distracted by a horde of Zeds. After continuing my search, I managed to find this instead. What the f- Wait, what the- What is this? They aren't supposed to spawn here? Yes. This is in fact a UH-60 Blackhawk helicopter equipped with 5.56 machine guns in a motel parking lot. This came as a huge surprise, because as the mod author himself stated, this thing is supposed to spawn in military locations only. Last time I checked, your local inn was not a military base. Unless you live in like Baltimore or something, I don't know. Either way, finding one this early is very convenient, because this bird is gonna have a very important role a lot later into our journey. But for now, I put it in the back of my mind and continued my search for a truck. On my way back home, I passed by the police department, grabbed the things I left previously, and looted the armory. Inside I found no shotguns, no shotgun shells, and no bitches. Which was quite a bummer, because shotguns are the easiest way to level up aiming in Project Zomboid. Regardless, I took some of the guns, brought them back home, and leveled up electrical to level 1.
There we go, brother.
On day 11, I cleared my area of zombies. Once I was done, I spent the rest of the day reading. The following day, I focused on grinding mechanics. I needed 1 level in electrical and 2 in mechanics, so I could start hotwiring vehicles. I already had the required electrical skill, but I was still missing 1 level in mechanics. My plan for day 13 was to slowly start clearing Rosewood of zombies. While doing this, I leveled up my axe combat skill to level 5. And thanks to the dynamic traits mod, received a trait that would further accelerate my progress. Moving further into town and clearing houses one by one.
Yep, this one's empty as well.
I managed to find a safe house. These generate randomly across the entire map and hold many useful items, primarily firearms.
Yes! Yes! Where are the shotguns?
I was starting to get frustrated. Sure, I still had the boomstick, but that can barely be even classified as a gun. It's in every single way possible, including damage. I'm not using it. Bottom of the barrel. Fuck you. Die. Anyways, I've been lying to you. I did find a shotgun, however I was reluctant to use it, because it's not even supposed to exist. But it seemed like I didn't have a choice. Armed with the shotgun and a CZ75 pistol, it was finally time to climb back up the food chain and take the fight to them. By the end of day 18, I had most of South Rosewood completely clear, and started making my way west towards the prison. In the midst of all this, I found an upgrade to my arsenal, the 870 Marine. It's a pretty average shotgun and doesn't excel at anything, but it's certainly better than what I had before. On day 16, I grinded carpentry a bit, and caught my first cold on day 17. The first of many. You see, the dynamic traits mod messes with the moodles, and makes your character more prone to colds. This feature was unbeknownst to me back then, and would cause me a lot of pain and suffering during my run.
There we go.
On day 18, I cleared and entered the main armory of the prison. Once again, I ended up with no shotguns and barely any shells.
Shotguns just don't exist.
But I didn't let this distract me, and got straight back to work. On day 21, after almost overdosing on beta blockers, I retreated early and spent the rest of the day exercising in the police department bathroom. Why the bathroom of all places? Day 22. I was gonna continue clearing out the prison. However, there was a sudden change of plans.
God damn! Well, change of plans. Guess we're grinding mechanics now. Come at me, bitches. There we go.
With the car now back on its wheels, I could finally get back on track and continue clearing the prison. This time I came up with a big brain idea. I would use a nearby police car's siren and lure the zombies out from the inside. But I almost fumbled the bag instead. Again.
Oh! I'm fine.
Luckily, I sustained no injuries and continued fighting. By the end of the day, the front of the prison was pretty much clear. The leftover evening was spent transferring the entire prison armory to my car before I finally headed back home.
Do a barrel roll!
Yo, that was sick! That was so sick!
The next day, I finished clearing out the interior
Oh my god, there's a lot of them in there.
and inner perimeter of the prison. On day 26, I got started on the outer perimeter of the prison, and by using a police car's sirens, I lured zombies out of the woods. But they managed to break the sirens. Yeah, I decided to use my car's horn instead. The hordes around the prison were massive, but thanks to my firepower, I had no problems clearing them out. And by the evening of day 27, I had the entire prison and outer perimeter clear of zombies. There were still zombies in the forest, but I would deal with them another time. After catching another cold, I went back home and slept it off. Next morning, I walked around the base for a bit and had a look at my stats. In 27 days, I had managed to kill 3,774 zombies. I was making good progress, but I still had a very long road ahead of me. So I immediately got back to work. I cleared the eastern part of Rosewood, shot up a church.
Lord, forgive me for what I'm about to do.
And raided the local Gigamart, before moving on to the northern part of town the next day. Since the weather wasn't up to my standards, I decided to return home for the night, because I realized that the colds make me sick. At first I thought it was because of corpse sickness, but I was always wearing a gas mask at all times, so that couldn't have been the case. The reason why I was concerned about this is because there's 4 stages to the sickness stat: queasy, nauseous, sick and fever, or as I like to call it, death. I think you get the point. Unfortunately, I would not find out about the true cause of this until way later down the line. But for now I spent the next 2 days indoors, reading and reading and reading, gaining knowledge that will help me with my progression and long-term survival. Midway through day 31, it finally stopped raining, so it was time to continue the slaughter. I steadily expanded my influence north. While clearing the northern gas station, I almost got overwhelmed, but I got things back under control and had it clear by the end of the day. Before moving onto the eastbound highway, I decided to grind tailoring a bit, and after reaching level 2, I got back to it and made swift work of the highway. By nightfall I got about halfway there, before I had to return back to Rosewood. The next day, I found another helicopter.
There's another one over here.
Reached level 9 in the axe skill.
One more.
And then looked for fuel to siphon. You see, by this point the power grid had collapsed, which meant the gas stations were no longer powered. Sure, there were plenty of cars with fuel, but that fuel would eventually run out. I had already located multiple generators. However, since I hadn't been able to find the required magazine, my character lacked the knowledge to operate them. For now, I shoved that problem under the rug and focused on the western part of Rosewood. And after 33 days and 5,000 kills, I drove around Rosewood. The streets were completely desolate. Not a single zombie in sight. Slowly but surely, progress was being made. The next couple of days were spent clearing out the countryside below Rosewood and tediously grinding the tailoring skill. Trust me, I'm not being weird. I need these items for skills levels, please trust me. I'm not that kind of a guy. After slaughtering the local farmers for almost 3 days straight, I patrolled around Rosewood. I am a very good driver. Keeping an eye out for any stragglers that I might have missed, while also scouring the neighborhood for the generator skill magazine. In the evening, I returned to the helicopters. Wasn't there a second one here? Oh, there it is. Oh! Fueled one of them up and took it out for a spin. Start it up. Yup, there we go. Oh, yeah. And lift off. Holy sh**, this is amazing. Dude, this is so cool. This is so incredible. This is honestly incredible. This is literally the best mod ever. This is the first time I'm flying this thing. Well, time to go harass other survivors, I guess. I am in love with this mod. Alright, let's set you down, like, right here. It's floating. This helicopter will become a crucial part of this journey. Why, you may ask? Well, you'll find out about it eventually. While I was having fun with the helicopter, my dumbass vastly underestimated how loud it was, and I scattered zombies around the areas I had already cleared. Oh my god! What the fuck? So I set out to fix my mistakes. During all of this, I finally got my axe skill up to level 10. Now there are only the passive and nimble skills left to grind. Only then will I become truly unstoppable. Oh sh**. So the next day, I did exactly that. There we go. My character was another step closer towards becoming a Chad. After getting absolutely ripped, I shifted my focus towards mechanics for the rest of the day. At this point, I had a lot of guns to my name, but my arsenal still lacked attachments and ammunition, primarily shotgun shells. So I set off north in my helicopter with the goal of looting this military surplus store. I was sure to find everything I needed there. However, because I do not learn from my mistakes, I once again vastly underestimated the loudness of the helicopter, and unsurprisingly, got overwhelmed. After getting things relatively under control, this happened. Great. That's just fucking lovely, isn't it? Oh, guess I'm fighting. Oh my god. After trying to regain ground once again, I realized that it was completely pointless, so I instead opted for a tactical retreat. The mission was a failure. Defeated, I turned towards grinding mechanics for the rest of the day, continuing into day 41 and 42 as well. Next on the list was carpentry. I got my character to level 6. Nice! Got a new trait. I ended the day off by clearing out the scattered groups around my house. Stop humping my windows. The next day I woke up to a raging storm. Oh my god, the storm outside. I had no choice but to stay indoors. Organizing, grinding, exercising. Way into the night. And because of this, I woke up late the next day. To pass the time, I tried out another firearm. The Ash 50. Overall a pretty solid rifle. I just didn't have a lot of ammo for it. The following day I once again patrolled around Rosewood, while at the same time, role-playing as an American cop. Suspect spotted. Initiating pursuit. Get on the ground! Stop resisting! I said stop resisting! Suspect has been apprehended. Returning to station. A bit later after this, I turned towards the south once more, with the means of reaching aiming level 6. Doing this took me almost 2 entire days, just to grind a measly 500 experience. Nevertheless, it was worth it in the end. And around midday, I developed another trait. Oh. Oh, the voices, they're getting to me now.
Murder, slaughter, kill, murder, kill,
Crazy. I was crazy once.
Fried chicken, 2,500 accord.
After working around my base a bit, I shifted my focus towards my next goal, acquiring a semi-truck, along with a big trailer. I decided to check out a truck I saw at a truck stop. It has a really nice pattern as well. However, before I moved on to the next phase of this challenge, I decided that for now, my #1 priority should be to clear out the southern countryside. So I got back to business. Towards the end of day 50, I developed another code. I was a bit of a dum-dum back then, and never really experienced codes in the time I've played this game. So I still believed that they caused me to be sick due to the mods I had installed. Because of this, I didn't really know how to deal with codes, and usually just resorted to eating massive amounts of food. Oh, how foolish I was. Why am I getting nauseous? Oh! Oh my god! Jesus Christ! What the f is causing this? I could not for the life of me understand what was causing me to be sick. And after the code had disappeared, instead of researching how codes worked, I just moved on with my day like an idiot. However, I knew that I should start taking the weather very seriously from this point onward. I don't want to get wet. I don't want to have another cold and risk dying again. So I stayed indoors until the weather had improved. Since I was pretty much done with the area in and around Rosewood, I got ready to head west, towards a very special location. I got geared up, came up with the greatest idea ever. Wait, I should carry around bread everywhere I go as a lucky charm. And secured myself the most spacious trailer I could find. Okay, so this is actually the biggest one. After making sure I was bringing the essential items with me, I finally embarked west the next morning. There it is, in all its glory. Fort Redstone. The perfect place to expand my insignificant arsenal. However, upon my arrival, I was met with a roadblock. Quite literally. The only way I could get through this gate was by busting it down with a sledgehammer. An item that I forgot to bring, but had back at base. So I left the trailer in front of the gate and returned with the truck. Once I got home, I realized that I in fact did not have one back at base, even though I had a vague memory of finding one. I assumed that happened on a different save file, and decided that I would have the best chances of finding one in the Moja Industrial Zone. So I secured myself a police SUV, and made my way east the next morning, while clearing the road along the way. With all these warehouses, I would surely find a sledgehammer in no time, right? There's actually no sledgehammer here. I've just had a thought. What if I never brought this? What if I never brought the sledgehammer to my new base and just left it at the fire department? I'll check out the rest of this area and then I'll go back home and check the fire department. After checking the final warehouse, I made my way back to Rosewood and towards the fire department. I swear to God, if this thing has been here this entire time and I didn't know about it, I will actually flip my shit. I will be the stupidest person on this planet. You have got to be kidding me. It was here this entire time! After finding out that I literally have the flattest brain in the world, I made my way back to that godforsaken gate. With the sledgehammer in my hands, I could finally tear down the gate and enter. But before I did that, I had a good look at my stats. In just under 2 months, I managed to kill just over 8,000 zombies. When I first started this challenge, I honestly thought it would be impossible. But looking back at it now, it might just be doable. I managed to make good progress so far. But to keep this up, I'm going to need more firepower. And Fort Redstone has exactly what I need. There's 4 weapons of mass destruction I have in mind, which will be detrimental in the long run, as some areas are a lot more populated and dangerous than others, like this massive, scary forest. However, before I could even go through with my plan, I instantly ran into problems.
My stuff?
The trailer had bugged out, and I couldn't access any of the stuff I needed to take on Fort Redstone. I thought the problem lied within the fact that the trailer was missing a door, which I removed to unlock it. However, I needed a higher mechanics skill to successfully put the door back on. Annoyed, I set the plan aside and headed back to Rosewood. I fueled up my Pontiac and made my way to this town in the north. I was here to check out the bookstore, the local gun store, and maybe even the police station.
Are you kidding me? Yes! It is all worth it! Okay, I'm out. I'm out. Attachments! Yes! What? Why are they all moving here? Why are all of them moving?
Come on, pick them back up. Ooh, okay. Holy sh**. After almost sh**ing my pants, I returned home. I managed to get a lot more gear out of that trip, and one of the books I was looking for. So the next day, I read the mechanics book and got to grinding. I spent so much time grinding, in fact, that my character fractured his foot.
Major fracture detected.
What?
This unfortunate event would delay my quest for another 7 days. I spent that entire time resting and trying to figure out why my character kept getting furious.
Why am I angry?
I thought it had something to do with my bloodlust, so I tested my theory.
Yeah, it's bloodlust.
After dealing with my need for blood, I moved on to mechanics to reach the skill level I needed. And finally, after multiple days of straight grinding mechanics, messing around Rosewood, and going literally insane,
It's been raining for 4 days!
I made a realization.
Then I was supposed to be carrying this. No wonder all this bad shit has been happening to me. I didn't carry my lucky charm around.
And what do you know? The next morning, my foot was in a better shape.
I'm healed! Oh my god, it's a miracle! I'm healed!
Which meant I could start fighting once more. So after a 10-day delay, I could finally return and take on Fort Redstone. So I strapped the door back on the trailer and...
It is completely broken. Wait! It fixed! Yes!
With Project Zomboid Spaghetti Code now dealt with, it was finally time to get into Fort Redstone and seize some military hardware. And to do that, I had to fight my way through and bust down 2 more gates.
You piss off.
Now that I was finally in, I could begin my search for the weapons.
Let me in, 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 let me in.
And almost instantly, I managed to get my slimy, greasy hands on one of the first items I was here for. And then another one. And then I found the weapon created by God himself. The AA-12. Chambered in 12 gauge, the AA-12 can be fitted with multiple attachments, such as foregrips, laser designators, various scopes and optics, along with muzzle devices. Its 7-round magazine can be replaced with a massive 20-round drum mag. Combine that with its capability of fully automatic fire, it's guaranteed to shred entire hordes in seconds. these are all the reasons why I call this thing the Fuck Around and Find Out 3000. And just like that, by the end of day 72, the entire Fort Redstone hospital was nothing but an ocean of blood and dead corpses. Corpses that I would use to grind tailoring. 4 levels to go. However, my thirst for blood hadn't been quenched yet, so I went deeper into the base.
Oh, someone decided to go for a bathroom break and has been now stuck in here for a whole 2.5 months. Live on the shitter, die on the shitter.
And after clearing out the barracks,
My deadass just got a reality check.
I had another smooth brain moment.
Oh, it did heal. I just had to remove the splint. How did I dupe the splint?
Now healthy, I moved on and found these empty bunkers. There was some loot here and there, but nothing special really. It seemed like a pretty safe spot, so I decided to rest here for the night. It would be a real shame if there were people in the walls though. After waking up, I spent the entire day moving various items to my truck and killing the occasional group of... Alright. These next few days are pretty boring, so let's just skip until something interesting happens. With that problem now out of the way, I wanted to test out my new weapons on this massive group of protesters, zombies. So I equipped my rocket launcher and dispersed the crowd. After that absolute slaughter, I took a break and explored the rest of the military base. I found more useful items, grinded more tailoring, exercised even more, and once I was done with my 4-day long workout session, I checked out the rest of the military base. However, my truck was completely full, and I'd have to come back for the rest of this stuff another time. I devoted the next few days towards finally clearing out the rest of Fort Redstone. Clearing out the remainder of the base was a struggle, because of the constant rain. In reality, I spent more time waiting out the weather than actually killing zombies. So after a constant back and forth over the next few days, I circled the area one more time, and could safely declare Fort Redstone clear. So I packed up my things, woke up the next day, cleared the road out of Fort Redstone, and headed east, back home. After 24 days, I returned on the 92nd day, with 3 of the 4 weapons found, a truckload of gear, guns and ammo, as well as an additional 5,000 kills. I would say that I deserve a small relaxing break from all the chaos. Now that I'm back, my plan is to turn the fire department into my base of operations, like I initially wanted to before getting evicted in the first episode. Before that though, I turned my focus towards my metalworking skill, or rather, the lack thereof. In case you weren't aware, metalworking is a very important skill for vehicle maintenance, which my cars were in dire need of. However, like usual, my character's knowledge was limited by the books I had available. After searching around town, I found none of the books I wanted, so I had to cut my losses and work with what I had. I wanted to continue grinding the next day, but there was a slight change of plans. Looks like the bloodlust my character developed those few months ago is slowly turning into a problem. Anyways, back to metalworking.
There we go.
Level 6. Not the desired level, but it's the furthest I can get. Now I can start renovating the fire department. I started off by clearing the backyard.
Okay, fine day's work.
In the morning of day 96, I used my newfound knowledge to repair my car.
Wow, that took all of my engine parts.
I also had to make some new sacrifices. For the voices. They are calling my name.
He did the same joke about 3 times already. I don't think it's funny anymore.
With the voices now suppressed, I had a clear head to think, and I came up with an idea.
You know what I'm gonna do? Instead of working on the fire department, I think I should test if I can even get generator knowledge from electrical skill levels, and then grind towards that if that's the case. F it, I'm gonna do that right now.
If this turns out to be true, then I won't have to worry about running out of fuel any longer. I remember there being a lot of computers and electronics at the military base, so I raced back towards Fort Redstone. Once there, I collected some leftover loot, and then went looking for the electronics.
Alright, here they are.
I read the required book and got to work.
Finally, after so long I can hook up generators.
After months of struggle, I could finally pick up a generator, hook it up to the gas station, and have a sustainable source of fuel.
We have gas!
With that problem now forever out of my way, I returned to the fire department. Then I went into town with the aim of stealing doors to decorate my base. But I ran into some trouble with the mod.
I guess I can't. It is required, but it doesn't say that it is required. Yeah, but
Once dealt with, I continued my search. Gathering and installing all of these doors somehow took me 2 very uneventful days. Next day I gave in to the voices once again and collected metal shaving from around town for storage. And then on day 101, I took a look outside.
oh my god! The first snow!
Yup, winter. That reminds me, to keep warm I gotta connect a generator to the fire department.
Let there be lights.
With electricity now running through the building, renovating is gonna be a lot more pleasant.
It's so bright, I love it.
Moving on, I wanted to reconstruct the missing garage door. To do that I needed screws. I found them quite quickly.
Oh!
However, once I returned to put the door up, like usual I ran into a problem.
What is obstructing it? What's obstructing it?
Something was constantly obstructing the door. Or should I say literally fucking nothing. Things can never be this simple, can they? After an entire night of slamming my head against the wall, I went with a smaller door.
I think I just add a small garage door. What? What? I give up.
There weren't any exciting developments for the next 10 days. Not saying the previous days were exciting, but these next few days were really boring. Just me stealing furniture, moving my stuff from point A to point B, silencing the voices, renovating the fire department, silencing the voices more, and stocking up for the winter. Just the same boring repetitive shit over and over again. One thing worth mentioning though is the armory I built between day 106 and 108, which I filled up with about 100 weapons. I would like to see the ATF try and shoot my dog now. Day 114 is where I finally did something productive. I wanted to finish what I had started back during day 27 and clear out the woods around the prison. To bait zombies out of said woods, I would utilize the helicopter's loudness to my advantage.
Take a look at this. Engine loudness 454 tiles. And that's the radius.
So I flew over to the prison, set down the helicopter, and got ready, expecting hundreds to start pouring out. The fight lasted almost a full 24 hours, and I used the materials I got from it to finally finish grinding tailoring.
There we go.
I could finally max out my character's protection.
So, the two possible areas where I can get bit is either groin or hand.
Once tailoring was taken care of, I patrolled the immediate area to eliminate whatever groups of zombies the noise from the helicopter had scattered around. With everything cleaned up, I now had to deal with the farmlands to the east. Which of course called for more monotonous slaughter. To make matters worse, I had my friends keeping me company this time.
Bro, it's my bad. My fucking balls are inflamed.
What?
Look at myself, bro. I look amazing. I would fuck myself.
Marble, take your fucking meds already!
After a final patrol on day 119, all of those ugly red dots were eliminated. I know I've said this already, but this time I mean it. On the 119th day, the first town and the area around it were finally completely clear, with a final kill count of 16,903.
There's a zombie in here. Bro, I've been here so many times. How is there a zombie in here?
Make that 904. Now it was time to strategize my next plan of action, because I had quite possibly the most dangerous and daunting part of the map ahead of me. No, I'm not talking about Louisville. I'm talking about this ginormous piece of forest that I mentioned a little earlier, which is absolutely infested with zombies. However, before tackling these woods, I had some more stuff to do around town, like renovating, decorating, and organizing my new base, as well as destroying private property, repairing my car, and disassembling other cars for spare parts. Yet every day, I was dreading the thought of dealing with that forest, but I devised a plan to hopefully ease my mind. The plan is split into two phases. The first and simplest phase, direct ground approach, which begins with me loading up a vehicle with weapons and ammo to clear out the narrow trails within the forest, and ends with the liberation of the not-so-secret facility. Once that's all done, I can move on to phase 2, air superiority. This is where the Blackhawk helicopter comes in. Using its mounted machine guns to my advantage, I can kill all zombies from above without ever stepping onto the ground. However, there is one slight problem. Its very rapid fuel consumption will limit the amount of time I can stay airborne.
Oh no!
Even with spare cans of fuel, I risk getting stranded, with limited supplies, miles away from home. Ammunition is another problem. I can only use 5.56 cartridges, and there's only so much I can take with me, due to the limited amount of storage capacity. Due to these two factors, I would still have to occasionally ground it, which is totally what you can do in a forest IRL. And fight the zombies on my own. Unfortunately, to effectively draw zombies towards me, I would still have to leave the engine idling and letting it burn more fuel, although at a slower rate. I already had the necessary equipment, items and supplies for the second phase, but I was missing a vehicle for the first phase. None of my current vehicles are suited for traversing difficult and muddy conditions. I needed either a Humvee with a trailer or a beefy but not too long military truck. Because navigating a semi-truck in those overgrown woods would be an almost impossible task, even with my 100 hours on Euro Truck Simulator. I remember seeing a military cargo truck in the Moja Industrial Zone on day 58, while I was searching for the sledgehammer. So on day 125, I made my way there. Oh, I guess not. So the next, no, not it either. I just kept disassembling more vehicles and organizing my base, I guess. I'll be honest, I have no fucking idea what I was thinking here.
Don't exit drive, kids.
I finally set out on my mission on day 128. And once I got there, I quickly located the truck. Well, there were actually 2 trucks. So I hotwired the second truck, fueled it up, and brought it to the first one to compare the condition. Generally, they were in a similar shape, but the second truck had a better looking camo, and it also had a chunkier gas tank. I disassembled the one I wasn't taking for spare parts, and before I left, I looked around for metal to bring back home. Now that I had all of the required items and vehicles, I could go on with my plan. However, there's one last thing I could do with the truck. By using the metalworking knowledge I had acquired months prior, and my abundance of recently acquired metal, I could beef up my truck with armor, and even repair some of the beaten up parts. So I got the resources together, crafted the parts, and put them into place. With the truck looking as good as new, I deposited and organized all of the stuff I brought from my trip. Once I emptied the trunk to the bare essentials, I loaded it back up with all the necessary items. Food, check. Weapons, check. Tools, check. Back to school essentials, check. Extra fuel, check. Metal for repairs, check. Sledgehammer, I forgot. Progress log, should have done this sooner. RPG warheads, check. Jeff, check. Alright, I think that's everything. I quickly double checked my trunk, and after resting at the local gas station, I set my sights on the forest. However, upon arrival, I immediately ran to a problem because of course I f***ing did. The dirt road leading through the forest has been completely taken over by nature.
Right, I'll tell you what, you fat little
And it's a lot worse than I thought it would be. I'd have to get out of my truck every 5 seconds to cut down the trees and clear the path. So not only would I have to deal with hordes of the undead, but fucking trees as well.
Don't fucking crawl in the dirty...
But there's absolutely no way some puny trees would stop the wrath of the Peepeepoopoo Man. It took me almost 9 in-game days to complete phase 1, and 5 entire days just to reach the facility. Dispersing the crowds of protesters around the facility was pretty straightforward, thanks to my recently maxed out aiming skill, along with the tools I found at the facility.
Oh okay.
On day 141, seeing I still had room in my truck as well as a new trailer, I followed the dirt road to take a little detour through Fort Redstone and engage in some loot goblin activities.
Wait, there's also an M32 grenade launcher in full condition right here. How did I miss all of this?
With all the military hardware now officially in my possession, I would never have to come back here again. So I said goodbye to Fort Redstone, and after almost 2 weeks, I returned home in one piece once again. Which marks the end of the first phase, with a kill count of over 20,000. But we're not done yet. Now it's time to move on to phase 2 and clear out the most remote areas of the forest. But first I had to unload the spoils from my trip, which took the entire evening. And no, this time it didn't take me a bazillion years just to prepare for the second phase. I actually loaded up everything rather swiftly, and after casually fueling up my helicopter at the gas station, I was ready to rain some hell from above. Oh, I accidentally got out. And finally, after 17 in-game days and around 15 hours of playtime, I performed my last flyover above the woods on day 149.
I think I've actually cleared the entire forest. Wow, this was so tedious and annoying and so dangerous.
With that, I could consider the scariest place on the entire map cleared. With the mission now accomplished, I returned home with the helicopter for the final time. With this, I completed all the goals I set out to do. I found all the weapons I wanted and cleared another good portion of the map. The majority of the south was now liberated, with the exception of March Ridge, a small college town with a population that shouldn't be underestimated. But I literally just got done clearing a significant portion of the map, so I decided to take some time to relax before I embark on this next mission. I thought to upgrade my residence a little. Ever since I refurbished the interior of my previously neglected home, I was keen on building a farm with water barrels on the side roof to be able to lead a more sustainable lifestyle. After all, the Peepeepoopoo Man deserves a bit of a change of pace. Maybe this project would help him take his mind off his bloodlust too. With the supply of logs I already had in my garage, I created a small overhang behind the firehouse with some storage, along with a way up to the roof. However, I was surprised that I couldn't just normally walk on top of it.
Oh. Okay, this entire roof does not exist. Oh my god, that's gonna require so much wood. Wait, what? Wow, it seems only the first tiles are invisible. Well, there's no going back now.
Unfortunately, my supply of logs just wouldn't cut it. Come on, it wasn't that unfunny. So I had to go get more from the nearby forest. And while I was doing that, this happened.
Oh sh! It happened again? God damn it! Ah!
It seems that I underestimated the weight of the logs and went a tiny bit overboard. You better start laughing, otherwise I'll air out this entire facility! In all seriousness, I had broken one of my limbs this way before, but unlike last time, I wouldn't let it delay me. Let's be honest, the Peepeepoopoo Man has been through tougher shit than this.
You may take my kneecaps, but not my freedom.
Right as I was getting ready to head back, I noticed a peculiar sight on my minimap.
Wait, a lone zombie? Where did this lonely bastard come from?
I never thought I'd worry this much about encountering a lone zombie in the woods, but I was 100% sure I cleared all of Rosewood already. This certainly presented quite a worrying predicament. Maybe I won't be able to kill every zombie after all. I guess only time will tell. The next day, the weather got quite heavy, and knowing my past experiences with codes, I really didn't want to risk catching another one. So I built one more row of flooring, and then limped my way back inside.
Go! It's cold!
After warming myself up with the heater of my truck, I set out on a less labor-intensive task. I needed to find some sacks, which I would later use to bring patches of dirt onto the roof after I finished the framework for the farm.
There we go, that should be enough sacks. Time to head back.
I finished the rest of the day by doing some basic chores around the base. Despite my efforts, I awoke the following morning with a nasty cold. Knowing the risks, I gathered some food from my already dwindling supply and ate as much as I could to hopefully combat the sickness. However, after resting and sleeping off the cold, I made a realization that I should have made a very long time ago.
Weak stomach. That's it. It finally hit me. Eating so much is causing me to be nauseous.
Throughout this entire challenge, every time I caught a cold, I always stuffed my face full with food for a healing boost, forgetting that it was too much for the Peepeepoopoo Man's weak stomach to handle. My indomitable hubris almost cost me my life. On the plus side, I now knew what was causing my nausea, and for once in my life, actually did some research.
Once contracted, a cold will continue to worsen until it reaches maximum strength, whereupon it remains for as long as the character stays cold, hungry, thirsty, wet, tired, or outdoors. I really should have picked the outdoorsman trait, man.
While food wasn't much of an issue, staying warm was the difficult part. With winter nearly in full swing, my generator wasn't powerful enough to keep my residence warm, so I had to search for an alternative heating source, preferably an antique oven. The closest location where I could confidently find one of these would be the Moja Industrial Zone. I decided to use whatever time I had left in the day to make my way over there now.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
Despite how severe that crash was, I didn't sustain any new injuries. And surprisingly, the car didn't sustain too much damage either. I'll take a shattered windshield over a horrific death any day of the week.
They don't build them like they used to.
Once I arrived, I quickly located a stove and shoved it into my car's trunk. After patching up my car a bit, I headed back to Rosewood, without crashing this time. After that short side quest, I carried on with the construction of my rooftop farm.
What was that weird noise?
What? Am I like developing schizophrenia as well now?
The Peepeepoopoo Man was starting to go completely insane, and frankly, so was I.
Yeah, I can do that too, you piece of shit.
I tried distracting myself by engaging in exercise for a few days, but my sanity was completely starting to crumble. Once I finally came to my senses, I found myself atop a pile of corpses. After trying to keep the voices at bay for nearly 2 weeks, my efforts proved futile. It seemed that a return to any form of past normalcy was unfeasible. This was my purpose. No, my destiny. And I had to embrace it. And so I did. Instead of heading right back to base, I chose to stay and eliminate every single zombie in the area. While I might not be able to rid myself of my bloodlust, it at least served as a distraction from my nicotine dependency.
Wait, what? I'm not a smoker anymore. Neat! Not even lung cancer can touch me now.
The sweep of the industrial zone lasted up until the late evening, and after waking up the next day, I noticed zombies creeping out of the woods I thought I had cleared. It would take another full day before I could actually declare the area to be fully reclaimed. However, I chose to stay for a little longer and made use of some of the parked cars to fix up my Pontiac. I was so focused on this in fact that I didn't even have the urge to sleep that night. While scavenging for more spare parts the following morning, I inattentively smashed in a car's window with my bare elbow. I saw the injury as nothing more but a mere inconvenience. As we all know, a good car owner takes better care of his cars than himself. Once the Pontiac was in a state I was fully satisfied with, I got ready to head back home. That 3-day trip let me scratch off the first location of my long list of places I gotta clear. As an added bonus, it was enough to satisfy the voices, even if for a short while. Once back at base, I unpacked the spare parts I brought back and generally used the rest of the day for mundane tasks. On the 164th day, I was finally able to freely continue my work on the farm. I also tore down the wall on the second floor to create an easier point of access to the roof.
It looks ugly, but it's gonna have to do.
After I finished the floor, I laid down the patches of dirt so I'd be able to plant crops up here. Day 165. Aside from the usual mundane tasks, I spent the entirety of today collecting rotten produce from all around town. Before you ask, no, I'm not that desperate for food yet, and there was still a decent amount of food around anyway. By using composters, I could take this produce and turn it into fertilizer for my future plants to accelerate their growth. And after many days of hard labor, I was finally ready to plant my first crops. In the middle of December.
The flora shall thrive.
The last thing I now had to do was to water the plants. But to be fair, it probably didn't matter how well I watered them. They'll almost likely die to the outside elements. With that pointless project now finally put aside, I could move on to an actually important task that I've been putting off for way too long. Mastering my mechanics skill. Yep, the filler arc wasn't quite over yet, but I wouldn't be able to resist the demands of my inner demons for much longer. After stalling the crusade for nearly 20 days, I finally packed up all of my shit for the purge of March Ridge.
What? You're kidding. Murdering thousands of zombies. I sleep. But the moment he carries one canned beans too many, he just crumbles like a piece of paper.
Well, at this point it seemed like even the game didn't want me to clear Knox County. In my frustration, I concluded that the best course of action would be to stay home and... Alright, fine! With a broken arm and a truckload of guns and ammunition, I made my way to March Ridge. Since I went into this without any pre-planning whatsoever, I decided to temporarily move into a nearby safe house that I discovered.
Yeah, it's a safe house.
Until I find myself a more defendable building, I'll situate myself here. Shortly after, I noticed a horde of activists that had already gathered nearby, and I could hear them chanting vile and downright abhorrent things like "Tighten gun regulations" and "Revoke the Second Amendment." Ugh. I can't believe they would say such disgusting things. I decided not to waste any time and got ready to greet my new neighbors.
Well, that was fun.
By 3 PM the same day, nearly all the activists had mysteriously disappeared. Peculiar, isn't it? Anyways, after that entire ordeal, I checked out a Mustang that caught my attention.
I can fix you.
Now that I didn't have to worry about a horde of zombies crushing my forward operating base, I took a look at the heat map. As you can see, down here is March Ridge, and the zombie population around here doesn't really exceed the town limits, so reclaiming this place should be fairly straightforward. The only potential obstacle would be the military dormitory, which most likely has hundreds of zombies lurking inside, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. I decided that I would backtrack and start from the entrance road once again. Then I'd move on to the eastern suburbs where I would over time make my way west, slowly clearing everything in my way. Now with a rough plan in mind, I went ahead to put it into action. As described, I cleared the entry road, then moved on to the eastern suburbs to forcefully evict anyone still persistent enough to stay in this part of town. To make my job a little easier, I decided to tow a first responder vehicle around with me and use its sirens to draw in zombies from larger distances. Later on after nightfall, I decided to pack up my things and departed in search of a better base. I chose to settle for the Marchridge School due to its central proximity to all parts of town. It was also right next door to the dormitory I mentioned. This was obviously a massive hazard, but I chose to ignore it. Surely this wouldn't become a problem later. Shortly after I cleared out the immediate area, I hotwired a random car and went back for that Mustang, and towed the first responder back as well, although with some difficulties. Drifting! Oh my god! I slammed that shit against the tree. Excuse me. I hope the engine's fine. Nope, it's not fine. Well then. After getting established, I went searching for an electrical guide in a nearby post office. I wanted to improve my character's level and enable him to make noisemakers. Funnily enough, in my over 1000 hours of playtime, this was the first time I even considered assembling a noisemaker in this game. I just simply never found a practical use for them, but that changes today. Next morning, after fortifying the school with the materials I had gathered the day prior, I spent most of the day disassembling various electronic devices to steadily climb my way to level 6, up until I fumbled and accidentally set off a car alarm directly next to my base. Uh-oh. This is bad, this is bad, this is really, really bad. Thinking on my feet, I hooked up the car to my Mustang and towed it away as fast as I could. Unhitch it, quick! They're all gonna start pouring out of the dormitory. Shh. Alright, and we're done. That got a lot closer than I'd like to admit. While my quick thinking didn't stop the nearby zombies from storming the school, it at least prevented the dormitory horde from overrunning it entirely. But this made me finally accept that this was a hazard I just couldn't afford to live with. So I decided that I would devote the entirety of day 174 to clear that place out. But before I could even get started, it happened again. Dog, are you f***ing serious? What are the chances, man? Alright, now I can move on to the dormitory. Thankfully, there are a lot less zombies roaming the host than I expected. Seems like those alarms turned out to be more of a blessing. Despite this, I couldn't underestimate this place, as I could easily be caught off guard. Oh my god, I thought I cleared this room! I need to be more careful. On top of that, it wouldn't be until the next morning that I dispatched the last resident. But it was worth it, as the area around my base was now devoid of all immediate danger. Not to mention, the dormitory provided me with a bunch of valuable loot as well. With that task now taken care of, I wanted to continue clearing Marchridge from where I left off. But midway through the day, my character caught another cold. Oh, great. Here we go again. Despite everything, my disregard of the natural weather elements was still my most dangerous habit, as well as my inability to drive. Bazinga! I decided to rest in the dormitory I cleared, since my forward operating base just didn't have the proper facilities to help me fight a cold. Probably not the smartest idea to light a fire indoors, but I don't really have another way to stay warm. Wait, what? Your fear of fire prevents you from lighting a fire? Did they change how the burn ward patient trait works? Okay, yeah, there's no way. I gotta make do without a fire, cause my character has literal PTSD. Luckily, it went away without the need for a fire, but at the cost of my sleep schedule. So it was time to properly get back to work. Dude, I'm gonna lose my mind. All I wanna do is disassemble some radios, man, like, come on! The alarm drew in zombies from multiple directions, forming a horde in the parking lot. To make my situation even more chaotic, another alarm went off down the road and brought in even more zombies. Fuck this town, honestly. But in chaos lies opportunity. So my 2 active brain cells came up with a plan. Since the horde moved away from the parking lot, I could use this chance to tow in the first responder and turn its sirens on, then speed away in my Mustang. Acting as a decoy, it would provoke the horde and lure it back to the front of the building. While this was happening, I would quietly make my way to the upper floors of the dormitory to find a good vantage point. With my rocket launcher in hand, I would then wait for the perfect moment to strike. Truly a mind-blowing idea. I gotta go get the fire truck. I think I left it around here somewhere. Yep, there it is. Found it. Looks like some of them are still moving across. Why are you on that side? Or whatever, we send it. We send it. There's no backing down now. Look at all of them. There's so many! Like lambs to the slaughter. Uh-oh. They're moving. Fire away! Holy shit. Oh my god, that killed so many. I'm gonna need more warheads for this. Dude, that went so perfectly. I am honestly really surprised, because usually that doesn't happen. And just like that, in the blink of an eye, there was only a pile of smoldering corpses left. I had discovered quite possibly the most efficient way to deal with huge hordes of zombies. There is a catch though. RPG warheads aren't particularly abundant, so it's probably best I reserve this strategy for densely populated regions of the map. But as fun as that was, the following events weren't all that special. I once again returned to the eastern part of town, and by nightfall managed to clear the suburbs halfway. After seeking refuge in my previous safe house for the night, I continued searching through the homes, at times rather carelessly. Oh balls, oh my god, oh Jesus Christ, I did not realize there were this many in here. That could have been it right there. This went on for a while, as one should expect. But my blade was cutting through the hordes like butter, and if that didn't suffice, then my guns would gladly do the talking instead. I was making steady progress, occasionally locating additional firepower along the way, further fueling my grind. But sometimes, even that wasn't enough. Oh my god! I just tanked a bite! Yep, my heart definitely felt that one. I was gradually becoming too complacent, turning off my brain and mindlessly killing zombies. If I keep letting my guard down like this, my stupidity will eventually get the better of me. In the worst case, before Martridge is even liberated. And I just couldn't let that happen. I needed to take a step back and really use this time to reflect on myself. But thinking hurts my brain, and I'm not particularly good at reflecting on my mistakes anyway, so I concluded that I got that fuck it we ball mentality and continued slaughtering the locals. Oh god. Oh Jesus! I know what's wrong with it. It ain't got no gas. Hopefully insurance will cover that. Wow! Are you kidding me? This really couldn't have appeared earlier, huh? For those who don't know, I just had an absolutely wonderful time looking for this thing last episode. What a f***ing joke. After dedicating nearly 2 days to the liberation effort, I reminded myself that I have a farm growing back in Rosewood, so I decided to return home for a short period. To my surprise, the plants were honestly doing quite well. The weather really didn't have much of an influence over their growth, and by next morning the carrots were even ready for harvest. Irrigation truly is the future. In the meantime, I tried modifying my Mustang to give it some extra armor. To do that though, I found out that I needed a specific magazine containing the recipes for the parts. So instead, I made some basic repairs before the trip back east. I was hoping to maybe get lucky and randomly find it in March Ridge. Next morning, I wasted no time and let myself be consumed by my perpetual daily cycle, incessantly searching every residence as I go along, including any bookshelves I discovered along the way. Oh, it's a recipe. So that's why I couldn't make my noisemakers louder. Only breaking the cycle to check on my plants back in Rosewood, and occasionally finding things that made my repetitious grind seem worth it. Yes! Yes! Found it! Hell yeah, I can finally tune it. It's a police Mustang! I've been looking for one of these. Holy shit, it's in near perfect condition. I am taking this for sure, man. For once, fate seems to be smiling down upon me. I spent almost the entirety of day 187 fitting my newly acquired police cruiser with the highest performance parts and completely dismantling my previous Mustang. In the end, it proved to be a lot more practical than the alternative of towing a random fire truck around. It even helped me boost the growth of my own skills. Oh my god, wait, keen hearing? From Longblade 9? Dude, that's insane! After several more days of slashing, shooting, and losing my mind, Number 5! I eventually found myself standing before the last block of houses. And before I knew it, I finally crossed off the last house. But I couldn't celebrate this feat just yet, because there was one more thing I had to do, which was to glue my eyes to the minimap and drive around to make sure that there wasn't a single red dot left. And sure enough... Oh, found one! Deploy the military-industrial complex on him. So after obliterating the last resident of this damn town, I could say that my hard work paid off. March Ridge was now fully liberated. Since my arrival on day 170, I increased my kill count by another 4,172 bodies, adding up to a total of 26,740. Judging by how quickly I conquered my first town besides Rosewood, I was confident I could accomplish my goal of clearing every small town within 365 days. After all, I still had plenty of time left. With a sense of accomplishment, I packed up my things and left March Ridge for good. Home at last. You know, that actually took me a lot less time than I thought it would. If I keep up the pace, I might even finish this before the first year passes. Now that I was back home, I could catch myself a bit of a break. I wasn't intending on staying for long, just long enough to take care of a couple of things and think of a way to approach the next couple of towns. You see, I wanted to cross off multiple locations in one go, which would take some planning. But before I even get to that, I really wanted to bring back the Mustang I left in March Ridge, as there was absolutely no way I was just going to leave it there. So after some thoughtful consideration, I decided that everything to the north had to go, and I settled for the most efficient route I could come up with. First, I would take the eastbound highway towards Doe Valley, clear it out, and then cut through the woods to get back on the highway. Then move north in the direction of Riverside, while simultaneously killing any zombies in my way. After liberating Riverside and the surrounding area, I'd proceed south to take care of Ekron, and then wrap things up by clearing the entire central farmlands. But what vehicle would I even use for this long expedition? My semi-truck? Nah, I don't feel like emptying out the entire trailer. The military truck? Not maneuverable enough. These two options weren't exactly ideal, which leads me back to the Mustang. It's fast, has decent storage, and with the armor upgrades could actually be really durable, thus minimizing the need for critical repairs. But the most appealing factor was definitely the light bar. Having a reliable and convenient source of loud noise was going to make this so much easier. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite ready for the trip yet. I obviously still needed to add the necessary modifications in armor, the recipes of which my character learned from that one magazine I found back in March Ridge.
There we go chains on the wheels. Hell yeah.
However, I ran into some complications rather quickly.
So I have the standard bull bar, but I would rather prefer the lethal one. But it requires a lot of metal bars, of which I don't have a lot. It looks like this little project will be more expensive than I thought.
The absence of the necessary materials led me to the assembly of a whole ass metal workshop. Following a step-by-step process, I was able to forge the necessary resources and make the armor.
Oh, that is beautiful!
In the morning of day 194, the car was finally ready, fully armored up and fitted with a bigger gas tank to allow me to cover longer distances, as well as a spare tire, just in case. Shortly after this, the voices started making themselves known again. I literally can't go 5 minutes without them screaming for bloodshed. But since I didn't have anything better to do, the only logical thing was to listen to their demands and start loading up for the trip. I thought of all the obvious things like food, water, medical supplies, tools, ammo and weapons, including a bunch of other essentials. I also made sure not to forget the sledgehammer either, but I will admit, despite spending most of the time brushing the dust off some yet unused firearms of mine, I still forgot to bring any of my miniguns with me. Still, any variety is always nice. On day 197, with a trailer containing everything I would need, I was ready to depart. I didn't know how long I was going to be away for, let alone if I would come back alive. But I had high hopes for this mission, so I didn't think much of it and departed westbound. I soon arrived at the outskirts of Doe Valley and ran into the first zombies that once used to reside in the local farmhouses. With the voices acting up, I began doing my thing. House after house, I was slowly closing in on the town. On the way, I found a generator in one of the garages, which I brought to my trailer. I was gonna need it if I were to set up a temporary base later. Next morning, I was irritated to discover that the nearby woods were inhabited too, but the siren made luring them out really easy. This thing is incredibly handy. I really hope that nothing, and I mean nothing, happens to it at a later date. The closer I was getting to the town, the stronger the population seemed to ramp up, more than I was expecting. Despite this, I still didn't feel the need to set up a proper base here, as this was a small location I was intending on simply passing through. However, there was one place I was after, the military surplus store, containing piles of arms and ammunition, which I did try looting before. I remember being overrun and leaving behind a giant horde in my place though. I was hoping that it had dispersed by now, but I still didn't want to barge straight into the center of town. Instead, I opted to first clear the open fields to the south and east. These took 2 days to clean up, but I was approaching the town at a gradual pace, and the hordes were really starting to dial up. But all those pockets of zombies that stood in my way were nothing compared to what I was about to witness deeper within the town. Oh my god! It's the consequences of my past actions! What am I gonna do? This was the horde I was talking about, but I wouldn't allow past events to repeat themselves. I was a lot more capable and confident than before, and unlike last time, I had just the right tools for the job. In just 2 short days, I managed to successfully liberate Doe Valley. For such a remote rural location, the population count was surprisingly significant. Before I got here, I had 26,744 kills to my name. By day 201, this number had risen to 28,472 by 1,728 kills. Whoever said that war crimes aren't a good speedrun strategy is full of shit. By vaporizing my enemies with very conventional weapons of war, I had claimed victory over the surplus store and thoroughly looted every corner. Despite deliberately leaving half of my trailer empty, this place had more stuff than I could ever fit. From 9mm to 50 BMG to 40mm shells to RPG warheads. You name it, it was here. After taking everything I could, I continued exercising my Second Amendment rights on the local population. And once I was done, I locked off for the night. But when I came back the next day, I ran into a really strange bug. Hold on a minute. Huh? I swear I marked all of this off. I'm honestly confused. I cleared this. Did I get set back? I was stumped to realize that the game had rolled back by 14 in-game hours. Weirdly enough, my kill count remained exactly the same, but a pocket of zombies that I cleared on the evening of the 24th reappeared. And all the markings I made the evening prior were erased as well, even though I had clearly been through those areas already. All the bodies were still there too. This bug was really unusual, but at least it didn't break my save file like most bugs in this game. Since it wasn't a big deal though, I just accepted the situation and re-cleared the area. If anyone knows what could have possibly led to this, please let me know. Once I made sure that there wasn't a single red dot left roaming the area, it was time to depart in the direction of Riverside. Approaching the highway, it was clear that the trip wasn't gonna be as straightforward as the actual road. But I was expecting this. No matter their numbers, no matter the days or weeks this would take, I was determined to clear this entire road, from start to finish. Let's see how this M60 performs. Just like back in Nam. What the hell? What happened here? The days passed by quickly, just like those summer nights I spent digging through public infrastructure in a schizophrenic episode, uncovering lost and forbidden treasures deep within the walls. I'm kinda straying off track here, but killing almost 8,000 zombies in less than 12 days does kinda get into your head. Eventually, I did clear the highway. At least that's what I thought. Until I ventured past the military roadblock and discovered more woods infested with zombies.
Why are there so fucking many?
Considering that this area wasn't even marked to be populated, I was pretty pissed, but I do have to uphold my promise. So after a lot more slicing and dicing, and another 1,000 kills, I arrived at the perimeter of the Knox exclusion zone and eliminated any zombies still roaming behind it in the early morning of day 215. Over those 14 tedious days, I neutralized 5,644 zombies in total. This number includes the entire population along the highway, as well as the small village by the river. I don't know why so many zombies inhabit such remote areas of the map, but I'm not one to judge someone's place of residence. I'm just here to finish the job. With that task crossed off and done, it was time to follow the riverbank towards the next town. And of course, standing between me and it were even more zombies. I'll spare you the details and jump ahead, cause I really don't believe that watching this for all of eternity is all that enjoyable. So, after slowly inching my way towards the next town and killing another 1,000 zombies over a period of 4 days, I found myself at the outskirts of Riverside. So I readied my noisemaker and rushed over to greet the locals. And by greet, I obviously mean shove my axe deep into their skulls. With the area clear, I moved deeper into town and found myself a suitable base location, which also had a bunch of nice cars parked out front. And me being the curious gremlin that I am, opened one up to inspect it.
God damn it. I just had to check the car. I just had to check it. Right. I really need to stop fiddling around with random cars, god damn it.
My new home got beat up a bit, but at least the surrounding area was now devoid of any threats, so I made myself at home. After moving some of my possessions inside, fixing the door, and laying my firearms out on the countertops, I ventured into town towards the local police station on day 220. To make the process of clearing the area faster, I intentionally triggered a car alarm this time around.
Cool, another goddamn alarm. Actually, I meant to do that. To help me clear the area, obviously.
Things did get a little out of control, but it was nothing I couldn't handle. From the police station, I acquired a little bit of additional ammo and some firearms to go with it as well. But other than that, it didn't have a whole lot, so I returned to my hideout for the night. Now that I had acquainted myself with the area, I had a look at my map to admire the progress I've made so far and to see what I was dealing with in this town. Until I suddenly glanced over a location that I had never seen before.
What the fuck is this place? What? Is this on the official map?
I was confused, but tempted to find out what that place was.
Oh, that was a pedestrian. What the hell do we have going on here?
This place was completely unknown to me, but judging by the tall metal fences, it was likely some sort of evacuation center or military base. After clearing the zombies guarding the place, I broke through the barricade blocking the entrance with my sledgehammer. Inside, I stumbled upon a sign reading, US Army property, no trespassing. Well, my name isn't trespassing, so I'm good to go. Anyways, this sign solidified the fact that this was a military base. And I guess the piles of guns were a clear hint too, but anyway, one question still remained. Why was this place even here? After going through my mod pack to find out, I found this map mod, Fort Rock Ridge, which I couldn't recall ever adding to my save file. I must have either included it on accident or have early onset dementia. Probably the latter. Since the existence of this place was merely accidental, I promised myself that I wouldn't touch any of the loot this place had to offer. Not like I needed any of it, but the zombies still had to go. I would deal with them at a later date though. For now, I went back home, did a bunch of random stuff, then got started on the western entry road in the evening. As for days 222 and 223, my dumbass forgot to hit record. It's not like you missed out on much anyway. I mainly got started on clearing the redneck sanctuary below Riverside, also known as Scenic Grove. In those 2 days, I managed to clean up the road leading towards it, as well as a small part of the area. All that was left now were the residences and the self-storage unit. In true Kentuckian redneck fashion, some of the residents disguised their weapon armories as trailer homes. I'm not joking. Every fifth trailer had like light machine guns, assault rifles, and semi-automatic shotguns. Arsenals large enough to make you wonder how these people even failed to survive. But I ain't complaining. I'll gladly borrow some of these. I ain't returning them though. Using my newly acquired firearms, I cleaned out the remainder of the trailer park as well as the self-storage unit. After entering the premises and exploring a little bit, I found this kick-ass truck.
Optimum Pride!
In the meantime, another horde had wandered out of the woods below the warehouses, which I then swiftly eliminated with the help of my noisemakers.
We already did. Oh shit, I got a code. Okay, I should probably deal with this.
After literal months free of illness, I had caught a cold yet again. I haven't been giving enough attention to the Peepeepoopoo man's needs recently, and it shows. I became way too fixated on the task at hand and let myself be further distracted by the very profound conversations I've been having with my friends.
Okay, Yato, can we not have half-naked black men in general twerking? Thank you.
But I had no reason to be afraid of colds anymore, since I knew how to deal with them the correct way. Upon awaking on day 226, I was greeted by subtle pattering of rain. This wasn't ideal, considering I literally just got out of a cold, so I decided to wait out the rain by doing a bunch of random stuff around the hideout. Once the weather cleared out, I went back south to make sure there were none left lurking within the storage units. The place ended up being clear, so I went on to circle the area one last time.
Oh, looks like there's still a couple of them roaming around. Let me deal with this real quick. Okay, I think that's it. Don't think there's any more of them left.
Finally, I was done with this trash pile of a trailer park, and it was time to shift my focus onto Riverside. So in the morning of day 227, I began gradually clearing the suburbs. But over that entire day, I was rather slow and didn't make much substantial progress. So I decided to return to the trailer park and loot some of the barricaded trailers again. This was completely pointless, since I literally had an entire arsenal of illegal firearms laid out for anyone to see. Unfortunately, the side quest didn't even stop there, but at least this next one had a purpose.
Wait, is this thing's battery dead? Probably, yes it is. This thing has a dead battery. And I forgot to bring a car battery charger. But I know just the place where I can find one, I think. If there isn't one here, then I'm in a bit of trouble. No, but there's a car battery heavy duty. That's perfect, actually. Time to head back and get it fixed up. Landed it. Battery is in and it should be functional. Hey, alright, cool. Oh.
With this police car, my intention was to round up all the zombies in the downtown area and basically carry out the same strategy I executed in March Ridge. This was gonna require some planning just like last time, so I prepped all of the items I was gonna need to undertake this and spent the following morning patching up that police SUV. It was already in pretty good shape, but I was gonna be leading a horde of possibly hundreds of zombies, so I really didn't want to take any chances. Once I took care of the last few preparations, I pulled into town, swept the premises, and built stairs leading up to my selected vantage point. To prevent zombies from climbing the stairs, I built a sort of indestructible barricade that only I could jump through. And lastly, added some emergency escape ropes just in case shit hits the fan. Since it was getting late, I descended the staircase and returned to my base for some much needed rest before the big day. Waking up, it was time to put my plan into motion and hastily sped to my firing position. However, as I was taking care of some last minute arrangements...
Marble, please. Why is this car alarm on? What? Dead! Okay, crisis. Ah! Uninstall quickly. No! I'm trying to uninstall the battery so it shuts the fuck up! Alright. I guess it's time I put my plan into action then.
Before I could even properly process the situation, I began rounding up the locals. It wasn't long before I had a whole train of them shambling after me. With the majority of the downtown on my tail, I sped around the corner and threw a noisemaker beside the police car. Once on the roof, I equipped my RPG and let them pile up around the car.
Oh, they don't know what's coming. Come on, blow up. Oh, they're all dead. Look at the pile of corpses. It is insane what this thing is capable of.
Without breaking much of a sweat, I wiped out pretty much the entire downtown.
I wonder what would happen if... Okay, that was actually kind of lame. I had to try it,
Enough f***ing about. This town ain't gonna clear itself. So I spent the rest of the day hunting down whatever I failed to kill. Later that night, I ran into another substantial horde. Again, I made use of my police car to gather them all into a nice pile so I could mow them all down with my almighty AA-12. God, I love this weapon. With half the town purged, I began steadily sweeping all of the buildings. House after house, day after day.
Man, these zombies are so oblivious. I've been standing next to the zombie for 2 minutes, I'm not even kidding.
I was improving my skills and inching my way towards liberation. Soon enough, there was only the gated community left. Just to make sure though, I patrolled around the liberated neighborhoods to clean up any leftovers. Following this, I moved onto the northern and eastern outer perimeter of the gated community. then started serving every resident of the upper class a well-deserved bullet to the crotch. Why the crotch specifically? For how well off the residents of this neighborhood seemed, you'd think they would own some interesting stuff. Nope. Apart from the occasional stashes of unregistered firearms, they were completely f***ing broke. At least I got a chance to take a trip down memory lane, because the gated community, and more specifically this exact house, was the base location of my first ever character. I still vividly remember fighting off a seemingly endless horde with a shotgun to protect my home. And here I am 3 years later, once again fighting hordes of zombies to take back what is rightfully mine. But disregard my nostalgic trip, there's houses that still need a little bit of interior repainting.
And we are done. That was the last house. How long did this take me? 12, 13 days? Something like that, I bet.
Close, but not quite. After a final patrol around the entire town, I concluded the liberation of Riverside and the surrounding region after just 14 short days, while adding another 3,566 kills to my name, the lowest count so far. But with Riverside being the least populated town in the game, I wasn't surprised. It was time I started packing up for my departure. My temporary residence had certainly grown on me, and I was a little sad to leave it behind. But duty waits for no one. With my gazillion firearms barely stuffed into my trailer, I headed towards the next location. I chose to take a detour through Scenic Grove, to add even more guns to my already ridiculous arsenal apparently. I also made the decision to clear this stretch of road. I was already gonna go this way, so might as well. After a long and restless night, I arrived at a crossroad. There the road split off into two directions, south in the direction of Ekron, and north towards Fort Rock Ridge, which is where I was headed.
Brother, you're f***ing with me, right? Oh boy, here we go again.
Delayed by yet another massive horde of tree huggers, I neared the perimeter fence in the morning of day 237, and dear god, this place was completely overrun. Unlike during my previous visit, I was made aware of how difficult this task could be. But first, I needed to widen the gap in the gate with my sledgehammer, so I could get through with my car.
Hold on a minute. Where is my sledgehammer? My signature move strikes again!
In my signature move, I had forgotten my sledgehammer. Somewhere. But I very conveniently stumbled across one on the way to look for it, so it's all good.
You know, I'm kinda glad that I didn't have to waste 2 hours looking for it like last time. Oh! Oh! I just almost died.
By this point, I had grown completely desensitized to the fear of death, becoming all the more reckless. Moments like these remind me that this entire challenge and all the effort I put into it could be gone in an instant. As a result, I vowed to never go above the speed limit ever again for my own sake. Then proceeded to get up to fatal speed the instant I got behind the wheel again. Thankfully though, I made it back alive and began clearing the outside boundary of the base, while their friends behind the fence could do nothing but stare and watch them perish. In the afternoon, I finally made entry and started clearing a way through the traffic jam. Even in the post-apocalypse, traffic somehow manages to still be unbearable. Moving deeper into the base, I tried to clear a way through the zombies standing in my way, but all the noise only attracted more. A lot more. And with the sun already setting, I really didn't want to push my luck. So I swiftly retreated outside of the base to catch my bearings and get a bit of shut-eye. Day 238. After clearing out the stragglers that wandered over during the night, I contemplated what weapon I should pick for the fight, and decided to bring out the big guns. Wait a minute. I didn't bring any miniguns onto this trip. Where did this thing come from? Hold on, let me have a look at this.
6.5 hours later.
Okay, so I just looked through over 50 hours of footage, and I have no idea. But this won't stop me from using it. Another problem would though. Ammunition. Sure, 460 .308 rounds might seem like a lot, if it wasn't a minigun we were talking about, so I went searching for more. The police station, empty. My previous base, nothing. all of the barricaded trailers, and not a single 308 bullet. Empty-handed and disappointed, I returned to put the minigun away and save the idea for another time. But I wasn't completely out of options. I found a Colt M16 fitted with an underbarrel grenade launcher during that short excursion. This would allow me to disperse the crowd with both explosives and bullets at the same time. It was a buy one get one free deal, and I just knew I had to take it. With the weapon kitted out and all magazines filled, it was time to put this thing to the test. Almost 1,500 kills later, I felt like I cleaned out the entire military base in just 2 days. That is until I moved to the next sector and realized there's another 6,000 of them just waiting for me.
Oh my god, there's so much more to go.
Listen, I'm sure you get the idea by now. There are a lot of zombies and blah blah blah, I killed them all. I'm skipping all of this totally because it's getting old and not because I forgot to record the next couple of days. In terms of loot, there were guns and ammo. Like, this is a military base, what were you expecting? Tickets to the SpongeBob movie? Pancakes? I could actually really go for some pancakes right now. But as you probably don't remember by now, I vowed not to take any of them. This didn't stop me from exploring the place, however. But due to the repetitive nature of this challenge, my brain was too numb to really take the place in. One place that really stood out though was this massive missile silo behind the complex. Of course I didn't record myself exploring it, but there were no funny red buttons to press anyway, so it probably wasn't even functional. I wish I could just vaporize this entire state. It would have been so much easier. Unfortunately, all I could do was keep on slowly and methodically thinning them out. One by 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 one.
Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.
Yes, Peepeepoopoo Man, here he is, alive and healthy. Jesus Christ, I forgot how far I am with all the skills. Level 10 maintenance, level 10 nimble? Holy f***. After wiping out Fort Rock Ridge, I had grown extremely tired of the monotony. I was pretty much doing the same thing every passing day, and could feel myself slowly going insane. So instead of sucking it up and driving myself into madness, I chose to take a break. As a matter of fact, I refused to touch Project Zomboid entirely for 2 months straight. Release me! This is part of the reason why it took more than a year for this episode to release, and also because I'm incredibly lazy, but that's besides the point. Now with a refreshed mind and a positive attitude, I was back to take this challenge head on once more. However, before I move on to the country club, I needed to clear the riverbank to the east of Riverside. By the end of the day, I passed another milestone of 45,000 kills. In the morning of day 248, after neutralizing the remaining few, I was ready to leave Riverside behind. Just to make sure though, I checked the woods south of the riverbank for any groups of zombies I might have missed. Oh look, there's more. Great. Me when there's zombies in a zombie game and I need to kill them. Please tell me we're done. Bye. Why is there even a manhole in the middle of fucking nowhere? After that unforeseen distraction, I approached the perimeter of the resort on day 249. I started punching holes in the fence to make clearing out the zombies behind it more convenient. I did this again and again, until there wasn't a single dot left along the fence. Now I had to move on to the actual resort itself. And thankfully it wasn't gonna be a tough job either. Inside the resort I was met with pathetic resistance. Socialist scum! These zombies are socialist scum. And a bar stacked to the brim with alcohol. Oh, I'ma shoot this place up while drunk. Wait, I'm gonna overdose. I can't do that. Everything is fine. Everything's under control. I'm good. Well, not entirely. Once again, I f***ed around, drank an entire bottle of bourbon, and found out. And I didn't even get drunk. I've had occasional run-ins with this modded feature before, but not to this level. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, there was absolutely no way to remedy an overdose. All I could do was try to power through it. So I picked up a chair and looked for a place to rest. This is gonna have to do. After all he's been through, is this how the Peepeepoopoo Man was gonna spend his final moments? Locked in a bathroom, dying on a decrepit chair, all because of a single bottle of bourbon? I wasn't sure. Safe to say, I didn't go easy into that good night. No way you'll die. No way you gonna die, you. You better not. We're fine! We live! We live! Yay, we live! Well, one could say that the Peepeepoopoo Man now has a second birthday, I guess. After narrowly surviving what a Finnish person would call a night out with the lads, I continued casually ripping and tearing zombies like nothing ever happened. Behind all the monotony and stress this challenge brings, I could say that it's nice to explore some of the areas I've never really cared to acknowledge. But is it really worth all of this effort? Nope, not at all. But I did find this weird square on my minimap. Turns out it's just a tennis court. Or is it? What is the government hiding from us?
Hello, this is your former President Barack Obama, and I just want to tell you I know how to beatbox with a little bit of yeah.
After taking care of the general area around the resort, there were only the nearby buildings left to check. Why have none of these people left? It's winter, end of the season, leave! Jesus Christ. And by 12 PM the next day, I was already done. The country club has been cleared, and I could move on to the next location. However, something didn't feel quite right. I had a slight hunch that I've missed something here, but I couldn't figure it out. Maybe I was just being paranoid, so I decided to occupy myself with something else to hopefully ease my mind. I want metalworking levels, so I'm better at repairing my car. There we go, level 8. That's all I can do for now. With my increased skill level and the salvaged resources, I wanted to conduct some long overdue maintenance on my car. Because let's face it, I've crashed and beaten this thing relentlessly over the past couple of months. And it's served me really well so far, so it deserves at least a little bit of care. Honestly, it's a miracle that it still even drives. With my car looking as good as new, it would be completely understandable for me to assume I was done here and move on. Instead of that though, I chose to stay for a little longer and have one last thorough look through the area. I really don't know what to even say anymore. It took me an entire day to clear them all out. One stressful day. I hate the woods, 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 I hate the woods! From your perspective, it might not look that bad, but don't be fooled. This is without a doubt the deadliest part about this challenge. I don't know how many there are, I'm leaving. Just the thought of having to clear woods as dense as these keeps me awake at night. I could utilize my helicopter to make this easier for myself, but it's literally across the entire map from here, so I chose to stick with the old-fashioned way. Why is there so many? Are we done? We're done. Next stop, Ekron. After slowly crawling my way through the groups of zombies I encountered on the way, I rode into town in the morning of day 257 and found an abandoned farmhouse on the other side of town to temporarily settle down in. Once I secured my new residence, I set off into town and immediately got to work. Considering I had visited Ekron before and looted the points of interest, there wasn't much left for me here. Only a substantial hoard from my past excursion. And you know what that means? That's right! God, I fucking love war crimes. In just one short morning, I eliminated pretty much half of Ekron. I'm honestly starting to get why people call this mod overpowered. I couldn't care less though. I've got better things to do. I stopped by the hunting store again to see if I left anything useful behind that one time. I didn't. Go figure. After this began the usual break and enter phase of the challenge, so I tried getting a bit more creative with my strategy. Oh my god. Oh, okay. I didn't know grenades do that little damage to you. That could have ended a lot worse. After some more casual genocide throughout the rest of the day, I went back to my safe house to get some rest. What day is it? I'm pretty sure I skipped a few days of the recording because it's the same old monotonous bullshit, just going around building to building, killing zombies. It's just taking up needlessly taking up space on my drives. This time around, I chose to leave a couple of days out of the recording. As Past Me just explained, it was simply a waste of storage in my eyes at the time, because I used to not have a lot of drives in my computer. Despite this, you really didn't miss out on anything eventful. So far I've liberated the east part of town and started slowly chipping away at the pockets of undead in the western suburbs. By the time the sun started setting, I swept the last residence and thus concluded the conquest of the small rural community. And the final kill tally adds up to 48,172. Before Ekron, this number was at 46,887, which rose by 1,285 kills over the course of 6 days. Once I finished scanning the nearby woods for any potential stragglers, I could scratch yet another location off my list. Finally, I returned to my hideout shortly before midnight, after another successful purge. After 66 long and usually boring days, I was approaching the home stretch at last. As much as I'd like to head back already, there's still loads of zombies roaming along the highways and back roads. As depicted on my personal map, these are all the areas I still need to clear out before I actually make my way back home. Not wanting to waste any time, I packed up my things, tried to reroute the lethal bull bar on my car without sufficient resources, and left Ekron in the morning of day 262. Driving eastbound, I knew this was going to be a long and boring couple of weeks. First off, I wanted to tackle the road I was currently on, as well as the small village at the end of it. The progress was slow but steady, and about midway through the day I randomly realized that I had somehow duped my trusty companion and lucky charm, Jeff. Wait. What? How is this even possible? I mean, double the Jeffs, double the luck, right? Anyways, I arrived at the village in the evening and began exterminating the local populace. Once the initial hordes were taken care of, I began trespassing into people's homes without any warning. I paid an unannounced visit to every house through the entire night, and finally chose to get some rest at 8 in the morning. Waking up at 3 PM, I continued my usual mischief until the village was devoid of all filthy and stinky Kentuckians. They never stood a chance. Following this, I took a short detour along a road leading north, to clear out any potential vehicle events that might have appeared. Yes, on top of entering and clearing every single building on this map, I need to drive along every stretch of asphalt to locate every zombie as well. At least it isn't that difficult or time consuming. Day 264. I started the day by fixing up my car. I also collected enough resources to install a brand new bull bar on the front. Maintenance on the car was starting to become too frequent and expensive without it, so it's nice to have it back. As I was about to hit the road again, I noticed a few random buildings deep within the woods.
Why? God damn it, why do you make me do this game?
Was there even any point in going here? No, there wasn't.
Oh, never mind! One toilet zombie. He's dead now.
After this, I quickly got back on track and began moving south, while clearing the occasional farmhouse I ran into along the way. Midway through day 265, I approached another line of zombies, and I chose to follow it north along a gravel road for the rest of day 265, as well as the entirety of day 266. In the afternoon of the same day, I already had a decent chunk of the countryside liberated, and was slowly approaching 50,000 kills. But it was at this point that I started to really wonder, what keeps me going? Looking back at it, it's almost disappointing what this series has turned into. I was forcing myself through this stupid challenge, repeating the same thing over and over again, with seemingly no end in sight. But I had come to terms with this reality by now, since there's no way of changing it. It always was gonna turn out like this, sooner or later. Because clearing Knox County isn't some pastime activity or a means to have fun. It is a duty. And it is a duty I shall fulfill until there's nothing left but the Peepeepoopoo Man and the vast expanse of death and destruction he leaves in his wake. Or die trying.
And we're home! Oh, it's been so long since I've been here. Oh my god.
After almost 2.5 months of constant travel and over 24,000 zombies killed, I could finally take some time to wind down. You might be thinking to yourself, wow, you've done so much progress. Surely you'll be done with the rest in no time, right? Brother, we ain't even halfway yet. Arriving home after a crazy long trip is always an amazing feeling. Unpacking all the baggage, however, is arguably the most boring part of any road trip. So I decided to procrastinate this boring task. I can always just do it tomorrow. Once tomorrow came, naturally I ignored what I said earlier and distracted myself with an entirely different objective. You see, during that entire road trip, I located a couple of really cool vehicles, and every time I saw such a vehicle, I could hear my Polish ancestors chanting my name, motivating me to steal them and illegally ship them overseas. Assuming they are in working order, of course. In case they weren't and needed repairs, I packed up my tools and supplies. Making my way north in a hot-wired SWAT van, I returned to this one Toyota Land Cruiser that I found back on day 273. Considering it wasn't an accident, it was completely busted to shit. But I came prepared for this exact reason. With my tools in hand, I started tinkering. I worked tirelessly late into the night, and thanks to the resources I brought and some parts from the van, I was able to make the Land Cruiser look better than ever before. All that is left now is to fuel it up and hotwire the ignition. You're now mine. The following morning, I started making my way towards the next car I wanted to pick up. It was yet another Toyota, a Supra, as a matter of fact. Unlike the Land Cruiser, it spawned in much better condition. Once I transferred all of my belongings from the trailer to the Land Cruiser, I hooked up the Supra and towed it back home. Once at base, I watched some VHS tapes to try and entertain the voices, but that didn't work, so I took my meds for once. Wait a second, those aren't my meds. Later I did some more repairs on my new cars, gave the Peepeepoopoo Man a fresh haircut.
This was a mistake.
Before finally heading to bed.
As much as I hate him, and as much as I'd like to move on to Mojo already, I gotta finish clearing that forest up north. Settle some unfinished business, if you know what I mean.
I did briefly visit Modra, but only to silence the ever-persistent voices. I need to settle that unfinished business before I tackle any new locations. There were also a couple of structures I seemingly never thought to clear here in Rosewood, and the only way to get in there was with a sledgehammer, which I once again couldn't find. It was actually in the most obvious spot ever, but I never cared to check it. Instead, I went back to the places I was at during the previous 2 days. I swear this isn't a bit, I am legitimately that forgetful. But hey, I got a skyline at least. Day 281. My workshop was running low on spare resources. All the repairs I did on my new cars really dried out my supply. My horrible driving didn't help this problem either, so I focused on replenishing it throughout the entire day by salvaging a bunch of abandoned vehicles.
Damn. Do I even have enough storage for this? Okay, that's about everything I can realistically fit. I'll just build more storage tomorrow. Why is it still 2 chevrons up? What the fuck? Oh my god, I lost another level of fitness. Why am I getting so fucking fat? What did I fucking eat?
While this certainly throws a wrench into my plans, I was going to prepare the helicopter to take care of that forest soon, but due to my in-game midlife crisis, I severely neglected the Peepeepoopoo Man's diet and failed to maintain his weight. Yes, this did happen before, and no, I didn't learn from my mistakes, as usual, but this doesn't mean I can't fix them. Before I get to that though, I wanted to finish a few tasks. Like mentioned yesterday, I needed more storage to empty the contents of the trailer. I also planted 4 patches of cabbages in my garden again, for obvious reasons. Now that all the boring chores have been dealt with, it was time to grind. After 6 continuous leg days, I regained fitness level 9. Level 10, however, would have to wait. But you know what really couldn't wait? The voices. Throughout those 6 days, I've left my character's blood loss completely unchecked, which was actually a really bad idea. Turns out it's impossible to get rid of, and if not dealt with for a prolonged period of time, it can result in permanent psychic damage. Thankfully, I didn't have to learn that the hard way. But the Peepeepoopoo Man will have a real hard time when there's gonna be no more zombies to kill. Anyway, now that I've regained some of my strength, it was time to gear up and settle that unfinished business. Before you ask, yes, I've already considered arson, but as your overstimulated brain may not remember anymore, the Peepeepoopoo Man is scared shitless of fire. All thanks to his, let's just say, past experiences. Meaning I had to make do with conventional measures, but I've cleared most of the area already, so it shouldn't be too bad. After a short flight in my helicopter, I arrived at the location and got to work.
God, I hate this.
Realizing that diving headfirst into the woods is basically suicidal, I used a more practical approach. Because why should I take the fight to them when I can bait them out with my helicopter instead? This strategy worked well, luring zombies from even the deepest parts of the woods. Maybe even a little too well, because I was basically forced to stay in one spot for the entirety of day 293. Zombies just kept constantly pouring out of the woods around me. Every time I eliminated a horde, another one would take their place. Almost 500 kills later, I finally eliminated the last one. That was fucking exhausting. After a brief resupply run in the evening of day 293, I continued sweeping the woods for the entirety of day 294. Soon enough, I arrived at the Western Highway stop on day 295. Observing the minimap, it was almost like I've never even touched this place before. The Kentuckians had reoccupied this area, and they would suffer the consequences for their actions. But there were way more than I was expecting to be dealing with. I needed a lot more firepower to match their numbers. Bigger guns and more bullets.
Wait, what the hell? Hold on a minute, where did these come from? Why are there zombies here? I have lived here for 300 days, where did they all come from?
Once I got back, I was really surprised to realize that someone had doxed my address. How do I know this? Well, how about you explain to me the 100 protesters literally at my doorstep? Because they couldn't just have materialized into existence, since respawning is disabled along with migration. And I know the entire surrounding region like the back of my hand. I still tried my best to pinpoint the location they could have possibly wandered over from, but I ended up completely clueless. It made absolutely no sense. Whatever, I won't dwell on it too much. I should just wipe them out and go on with my day. But their sudden arrival presented a great opportunity to test out my minigun.
Didn't blow the magazine. There we go. Holy shit, the fire rate. Holy smokes. This thing is an absolute monster, dude.
Once I, kindly requested they leave my property, I disposed of nothing. I disposed of absolutely nothing. There was nothing around my base. What are you talking about? Oh, hey, look, my cabbages are ready for harvest. After thoroughly circling the area one last time, I prepared the minigun and loaded up over 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Ever since I left the area those 2 days ago, the horde only grew larger, but that no longer posed a problem. I landed my helicopter and took position as they slowly trickled towards it.
There's in fact so many that the game isn't creating any new projectiles from the minigun.
That's probably the lamest shit I've ever experienced. I tried making the most of the situation, but it was pointless to even bother. This thing is just too powerful for its own good, it seems. I pulled the attention away from the helicopter so I could leave and devise a different plan. I picked out more explosive options instead, like my reliable M32 grenade launcher and an M72 LAW. The high explosive rockets it uses do cause fire, which I'm not a big fan of, since I've made a rule for myself to not use fire at the very start of this challenge. But as long as I make sure no zombies burn to a crisp, it's fine in my book. After turning that angry mob into a pile of ashes, I went to go get some rest in a nearby house. Once I awoke in the evening, I sat and watched as they once again multiplied like bacteria through the entire night of day 298. Boy, I am glad I didn't have to go into those woods myself. As a matter of fact, the group was so large that I managed to power level both of my stealth skills and max them out. To achieve this, I just paced around back and forth for less than 10 minutes. Truly the peak of game design.
And just like that, they're all gone. Beautiful, isn't it? It truly is a beautiful sight.
After dealing with another but smaller horde the next morning, they finally stopped pouring out of the woods. Either they're actually all dead, or they're scared shitless and are refusing to come out. Turns out it's the latter.
Oh my god, why is there so many at this lake?
I attempted to wipe them out with the guns on my helicopter, but quickly ran out of 5.56 bullets. So I got a little innovative with my methods.
I wonder, can I shoot my grenade launcher at the zombies from up here? I in fact cannot. That was a horrible idea.
Wow, that did a lot of damage. You f around and you find out, I guess. Sometimes I am truly dumbfounded at my lack of self-preservation, and this is one of those times. Considering how rarely I think things through, it's a miracle I've even made it this far. Anyways, once I dealt with the unnecessarily large horde and cleared the remainder of the forest, I performed a final flyover above the entire region and could call the job done. Even if it took more time and effort than anticipated. The moment I got back home, I changed any clothing that got damaged in the recent incident. Cause why liberate the entirety of Knox County if my fit don't look fresh while doing it? Then I spent the rest of day 302 chilling in my home to wind down from that lengthy expedition, unloading my helicopter and taking care of some all-around mundane tasks.
Alright, so all of this is clear. The entire left side of the map is clear. Well, not quite. There's still a bunch of buildings around the countryside and a bunch of roads I gotta drive through. You know what? I think I'll do that right now, actually. And so I spent the next 3 days cruising through the countryside. Not a single farmhouse, road, shed, or gravel path would go unchecked. And not a single road sign or tree unharmed. Cause I am God's drunkest driver, and I ain't even drunk. Jokes aside, eventually I completely killed the engine on the Supra, leaving me stranded in the middle of nowhere. And so I had to make my way back to Rosewood on foot. But since I'm a idiot, I forgot to record the entire thing. I didn't record this. It was so funny. Whatever. It's not a big deal. I towed the repaired Supra home and then got back to it. If I wasn't so bad at driving, I wouldn't have to spend another minute clearing the countryside. But hey, at least my game crashed and wrote the time back again. What happened here? Where's my car? After a bit more driving, I returned to base, and I wasn't intending on wasting another minute. I've been in and out of Rosewood constantly, going from point A to point B without much purpose, and made very little progress over the last 3 weeks. So it's about time I set my sights on Modra, the next major location on my list. And so I began adequately preparing myself for this mission. I decided to ditch the Mustang this time. It served its purpose and it no longer has a functional light bar, so I don't see the point in using it anymore. The Land Cruiser, on the other hand, is a much better option. Once all the essentials were loaded up, I departed eastbound. But before we arrive in Modra, I gotta come clean about something. I hate this town! It's a cesspool of failed economic development. Everywhere you look, there's low-income housing. Here, hell, half the town is a damn trailer park. I cannot recall a single time I've willingly spawned in this town. Even Bitgosh seems like a paradise compared to this place, and I already refuse to be 50 kilometers near that place. The only good thing about this town is the completely straight highway it's built along, offering a quick way through this landfill. But for the sake of this challenge, I need to put my hatred for this town and its people aside. And so I carefully made my way up the highway. Weaving through the scattered hordes, I searched for a fitting base location. After a while, I came across this fenced-off compound. This place should do nicely. I think I'm gonna stay here. Once I cleared out the undead and claimed the area for myself, I started refurbishing this warehouse in the corner of the compound. I really wanted to make this place feel like home, which is something I haven't done with any of my FOBs before. It would take some work, but I'm sure it will be worth it. I began by disassembling some of the crates in the back to make room for my car. Then I barricaded the windows, connected a generator. Hey! Lovely! Stole a bed, built a small pantry, added some decoration, and reorganized the furniture. Later, I visited the only rich neighborhood in the area to, well, rob their shit. Upon returning, I glanced at my minimap, revealing a massive horde of the undead not too far away from my base. There are so many of them there, holy shit. Why are they all gathered like that? It was probably some alarm which prompted them to group up like that. Either way, I didn't worry about it too much. Before I knew it, almost 2 days had already passed since my arrival. It took a little effort, but I finally got my hideout to a state I was happy with. It's not much, but it is mine. Awaking in the middle of the night on day 309, I took my car down to the local police station to look for additional ammunition and gear. Once I returned, I continued working around the base and built myself a small armory to have a place for my arsenal. Nope, not in here. Wait, whoa, wait. What the hell, dude? Where did that horde go? What happened to that horde? That's kind of worrying. I decided to casually go on with my day, but saying that the sudden disappearance of that horde didn't leave me on edge would be a lie. A few hours later, a small group found their way into my compound, and I easily dispatched them without any issues. However, unbeknownst to me, this was only a small portion of what was about to come shambling my way. Yeah, see, look at this. Another small group's just closing in on my location for no reason. And there's another small group right on the minimap. I'd say that's like 50. Okay, that's a lot more than 50. I think that is a lot more than 50. I think that may be like a little bit more than 50.
Seemingly out of nowhere, massive hordes of zombies began quickly surrounding my location. Oh my goodness gracious. I was taken completely by surprise and was ill-prepared to defend my compound. If I don't act fast, it will turn into a death trap. So I took as much ammo as I could possibly carry and got the f*** out of there. Once outside, I looked back as they consumed my FOB with their overwhelming force. Holy f***! However, as hopeless as the situation may seem, the Peepeepoopoo Man wouldn't back down without a fight. They all know where I'm at. Like, I can see them actively closing in on my location. Holy shit! What the fuck? No. Running low on ammo, I dispatched the last pursuing horde and breathed a sigh of relief. But this battle was far, far from over. Oh my god! Thankfully, the swarm moved away from my base, allowing me to quietly sneak in and get into my car. I'm getting out of here. From here, I drove back to Rosewood, utterly speechless. But now's not the time to get hung up on my thoughts. Arriving home, I immediately loaded up my most powerful weapons into my trunk. Looking like a literal walking arsenal, it was time to push them back once and for all. Once morning finally came, I had claimed victory and the battle for Modra was over. The battle for Modra will be remembered for generations to come. I wandered through the entire battlefield, glancing over the carnage. Bodies laid on every street, bullet casings littered at every step, and blood dripped from my clothing. My eyes relished at the sight of endless bloodshed, filling me with a sense of euphoria. But my home, my sanctuary, into which I poured so much of my sweat into, was left in utter shambles. I killed over 1,000 to retake this compound, a ridiculous price to pay for a living space. Man, rent is really getting out of hand. Either way, I couldn't stay here anymore. The mess I caused would quickly make me deathly sick, and cleaning it up is a responsibility I didn't want to deal with. I decided to just cut my losses and get out of there. I located an abandoned bar down the road to continue my stay in. After clearing out the zombies guarding the area, I acquainted myself with my new residence. It was nowhere near as nice as my previous base, but it's gonna have to do. Starting off day 312, I hooked up my generator to the building, then departed to this nearby warehouse in search of a hammer and a saw. I had misplaced mine somewhere and couldn't find them anymore. Fortunately, I found a new set rather quickly, but the alarm I tripped attracted the remainder of yesterday's swarm. Considering what happened last time I had a horde nearby my base, I really didn't want them around, so I decided to get rid of them before I end up regretting it later. Through enough determination and 12-gauge buckshot, the threat was neutralized. After this, the rest of the day was rather uneventful. What are you doing? No, don't you dare touch that f***ing alcohol bottle. Stop! No! I really do have some sort of death wish. Once the sun rose the next day, I set out in search of a working car battery. Just like back in Riverside, the plan was to hotwire a police car with a working siren to assist me in the liberation effort. I inspected every car I came across, yet it still took almost the entire day to find one. Once I picked out a police car and got it fixed up the next day, I got it refueled and began sweeping the streets. The plan was to first clear the entire highway and then the rest of the town. Driving north, I ran into the last remnants of the swarm. Okay, I may have kicked the hornet's nest here. Yep, I definitely have. Ain't nothing a little bit of German engineering can't fix. Man, this gun was made for this. Literally. And so my daily schedule turned to constant monotonous slaughter once again, burning through thousands of rounds of ammunition each day, slowly clearing the town bit by bit, while occasionally getting up to some unusual mischief, to say the least. There are so many people inside of this school. You know what that means. And of course, committing to my legacy of becoming the worst driver to ever walk this earth. How the f did I manage to do this? During this car's 8-day lifespan, I had to repair it like 6 times. 1,000 hours on the game, by the way. Actually, in probably the most ironic twist ever, in the night of day 317, I flipped my car on the way to recover my other flipped car. I needed to hotwire a random van to get them back on their wheels. But despite these mishaps, I was making progress rather swiftly. Towards the end of day 317, I had around 60% of the town clear and eliminated roughly 5,000 zombies by that point. After this, I redirected my effort towards the west, with the aim to clear the McCoy logging area and the small pockets of zombies lingering in the woods around it. This continued way into the evening of day 319, and after making sure I didn't leave any alive, I returned to the dense hordes of the highway. Peak Project Zomboid Kentucky Conquest gameplay right here. Just look at this. After more than a week of loyal service, the locals finally permanently disabled the siren on my police car. So that's what those complaints were about. Huh. Who cares? I don't even know how to read anyway. I've repaired the engine like 6 times, but the light bar, it's beyond saving. However, it has aided me well throughout its lifespan, and for that it deserves its own place to rest. Thanks for the help, pal, but I've already got a replacement. You! I'm gonna use and abuse you like you don't even know it.
Oh my god.
Yep, I told you I'd abuse this thing. With my new replacement vehicle, I got back to killing whatever was left near the highway, because at this point, it was pretty much devoid of all zombies. Day 322. I'm getting along with Modra a lot faster than I thought I would. There's only individual buildings left and the eastern side of town, aka Poverty Central, my next target. Once I reached the eastern edge of town, I was surprised to barely have run into any zombies. I would guess everyone from here already perished in the battle for Modra. Oh well, makes my job easier. Since there didn't seem to be any more undead roaming about in the streets, it was time for the most boring part. The buildings. Oh boy, I sure do love going around and exterminating whoever's trying to hide from my wrath for multiple days in a row. Seriously, why are zombies designed to only spawn in buildings when you enter them? Whatever, that's 1 hour of my life I'll never get back. Kinda sums up this entire challenge if you think about it. following a final patrol through the Modra streets, I ended day 325 with yet another fully liberated town. This one was quite the roller coaster, especially when that giant swarm attacked out of nowhere. Even though I was caught completely off guard, it was still a really fun break from my daily schedule. In the end, it took me 18 days to rid this town of zombies, leading me to rack up another 6,120 kills. Quite the impressive number. Alright, there's nothing left for me here. Time to pack up all of my stuff and hit the road again. Departing in the afternoon of day 326, I decided to divert my course to the Modra train depot. I actually almost completely forgot this place existed, so I might as well take care of it now before I do so again. This place covers quite a substantial area, which does give a false impression of the zombie population. In reality, there were actually only around 600 roaming the area. Despite their insignificant numbers, it still took me 3 days to thoroughly clear it. Overall, it was just another boring location without much to offer. Finally arriving home on day 330, I immediately had the next location on my mind. The progress I've made over the last 6 months is undeniably great, and Knox County will soon be entirely mine. But time is slowly running out, so I really gotta pick up the pace and complete the objective I set myself at the start of the video. Since West Point is the most densely populated town in the game, it was gonna take more time and effort to wipe it out than any of the other towns. Besides, it's not the only location that's still left to clear. And so followed 3 days of nothing but me hauling supplies to the truck. If it wasn't apparent by now, I am horribly time inefficient. But in the night of day 334, I was finally ready and left Rosewood with West Point in my sights. 5 days of genocide with a side of domestic terrorism later, I was nearing the outskirts of West Point. And oh my god. This place is more packed than Astral World was. The ammo I brought should be enough to wipe them out, but I couldn't say for sure. As for my base of operations, I decided to set it up in this retail store on the eastern edge of town. Hold on. Wait a damn second. Enhance. 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 Is that American Tire? Oh hell nah, Chief. I'm getting the f*** out of here. I ain't stepping anywhere near that store ever again, due to some recent events in a particular video. Go watch it, by the way, it's a good video. I would be better off just throwing myself to the zombies instantly instead of spending even a single night in this place. I really don't feel like being violently torn to shreds. I'm leaving. I would burn the building down if I could. Leaving that place was actually a good decision, because I found a car workshop which is 10 times better. It already has a spacious garage and decent enough rooms to turn into a living space. With enough work, I can even turn it into an easily defendable fortress, thanks to the open sightlines all around the building. Doing this as soon as possible would be necessary, because if I were to get caught off guard by a swarm here in West Point, their sheer numbers would make the battle for Modra seem like a cakewalk. I couldn't say for sure if I was gonna be confronted by one, but do I really have to be? Like, come on, I'm already having enough trouble as we speak. Yeah, this town is a piece of work, alright. Anyways, as I was saying, it's not clear if I'll be facing a swarm here. I'd have you know that I'm not betting on it. Duh. But I'm sure as hell not gonna take any chances either. So I immediately began erecting fortifications the moment I woke up the next morning. I chopped down trees for building materials and barricaded my windows. I also connected a generator and plugged a car battery in to get it charged. For the rest of the day, I focused mostly on the interior. I'll be honest, this is way too much effort for something that's gonna likely get obliterated anyway. The same thing also continued through the most of tomorrow. I really gotta learn to keep my priorities in check. Moving on from my unnecessary bullshit, I collected the charged battery and installed it into this sick race car parked out back. This will be a much better way of getting around West Point. Shortly after building a way up to the roof the next morning, I noticed just how empty the surrounding area had suddenly gotten. Just like back in Modra, the zombies disappeared. It was now certain that an attack was imminent. I just didn't know when. All I knew is that I was running out of time. I have to finish building up my defenses fast, and I wouldn't get an ounce of sleep to make that happen. Oh, and I also hotwired a pickup truck to make hauling materials easier. It's an absolute piece of shit, but it has its benefits. The following day, in an effort to acquire as much firepower as possible for the fight, I headed out to this nearby gun store in the east. This trip ended up being absolutely crucial, because after the battle for Modra, I had actually almost depleted my entire supply of 40mm high explosive shells. And coming back from this loot run, I had a fresh 35 shells to work with, which was a massive relief. Once I deposited everything in my upstairs storage, I placed floodlights all around the roof for extra nighttime visibility. I got these from American Tire. As much as I hate that place, they were too good to pass up on. Before I continue with the construction of my fortress, I went ahead and prepared over a dozen of my most powerful firearms for the fight. But I quickly realized that I have more guns than attachments. Another short trip down to the gun store solved that issue. I'm not gonna lie, the silence and the lack of zombies is kinda stressing me out. Things had gotten quiet around West Point. Really quiet. What usually is a location infested with thousands of zombies had turned into a desolate ghost town. It was unnerving, and knowing that those thousands of undead would soon attack all at once was even more so. Bolstering my defenses, even if primitive, had to be my top priority. Although not very advanced, I completed my fortress in the early afternoon of day 345. With escape ropes hung all around the building, all the essentials I would ever need right at my disposal, and over a dozen firearms at the ready, I was as prepared as I could possibly be. And yet, I was still unsure if this would even be enough. Just in case, there's always plan B. There was nothing left to be done now. All I could do is sit on my roof and wait for their inevitable arrival.
They're on their way.
Distant screams echoed through the entirety of West Point, announcing the incoming march of the undead army. This was it. The force of the entire town was now on course towards my current position, but the Peepeepoopoo Man remained unmoved. Once a feeble man covered in burns, now stands tall and confident before his meeting with death itself. But he hasn't come all this way to fail now. He would kill each and every last one of them to reclaim West Point, because cleansing Knox County has been his duty since the very beginning. There's no city too vast, no building too tall, and no horde too substantial for him. So let's settle this with one final battle. The battle for West Point lasted up until the late evening of day 346, almost a full 24 hours, and it left me completely exhausted. I lost my base, most of my belongings, and nearly my life as well. But damn did I put up one hell of a fight. I think I killed over 3,000 zombies in a single day. If the Peepeepoopoo Man wasn't unstoppable before, he definitely is now. Overall, I would say that the defense was a glaring success, even if I lost a lot of my weapon accessories and ammunition, but that's a rather small price to pay. It's not all lost though. While sifting through the charred debris, I managed to recover some of my items. All of my guns, which I thankfully didn't store in any crates, some building materials, and even my clothing. Honestly, I'm just glad that my arsenal came out unharmed. Once I salvaged everything I could find, I departed in search of a new hideout. Along the way, I discovered a couple of leftover hordes still roaming the area.
Oh my god. This escalated rather quickly.
Some small, and some really huge.
That shit looks like something straight out of The Walking Dead.
They seemingly never made it to the battle in time, and I'm kinda glad they didn't. I don't know if I would have been able to handle another 1,000. After what I went through, however, the process of dispatching these hordes could be compared to a calm stroll through the park. Meanwhile, the battle was like trying to make it out of a Best Buy with a PS5 back in 2020. That first metaphor kinda sums up my entire stay in West Point actually. Even after claiming another building as my base, there really wasn't anything interesting to cover anymore. The battle left most of the downtown empty, leaving only the boring suburban sprawl and a couple of small rural areas to clear. Falling into the usual daily loop and switching on autopilot didn't take long. Every day turned to eat, sleep, kill, repeat. Eat, sleep, kill, repeat. And on the cycle continued, sometimes even without the sleeping part. On day 355, I passed the 70,000 kill milestone. Even after the battle of a lifetime, there was still thousands of undead unaccounted for. It really puts into perspective just how many zombies reside in this community. But despite their absolutely enormous numbers, it really didn't take long to conquer West Point. I had cleared the majority of the town and moved onto the countryside to the west by day 357. And only a few short days later, I was already done with the entire town. There was a gravel path leading into some thick woods still infested with zombies, but I made short work of that as well. After that final encounter, I could confidently conclude the liberation of this final location on day 362, with a kill count of 71,929 kills, just 3 days before the deadline of my objective. I am aware that West Point was more of a rapid fire round, but I'm seriously struggling to make the monotony of this challenge into an enjoyable video at this point. Even after West Point, I wasn't even entirely done either. There were a few more filler locations here and there, along with some lone farmhouses in the far corners of the map. But it wasn't anything to sweat about. After more than a year, what was seemingly once a faraway dream, the Peepeepoopoo Man purged the last zombie within the exclusion zone. As ambitious as this challenge seemed at the beginning, the Peepeepoopoo Man prevailed far beyond what he thought was possible. His accomplishments are undeniable, and his work here is complete.
Once again, a quick thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring the video, and don't forget to claim your bonus through the links below. However, his duties are yet to be entirely fulfilled.
Greater challenges await him in the distant lands of Kentucky. He will not rest until there's nothing but him and the path of destruction he leaves in his wake left. The moment has finally come to leave Rosewood behind. It no longer makes sense to reside in this town, so it's only wise I spend my last days here gathering as many of my belongings as possible for the next trip, because this time, I wasn't intending on returning. Once the sun finally rose on day 375, I took one final walk through the area to appreciate just how far I had come. It's been one hell of a ride, to say the least, but before I depart, there's just one final bridge left to burn.
It's been a good run.
I sat and watched as a year's worth of my hard work burned to the ground. Saying goodbye to a place you once used to call home is difficult, but Louisville isn't gonna conquer itself. Unfortunately, I'll have to save that story for another time. But when that time will come, I cannot really tell. But I am slowly getting back into editing, and I'll start working on some new videos soon. So make sure to stay tuned, and I'm sorry for the hold up. But for now, this is where our journey ends. Our paths will likely cross again someday, but until then, I shall rip and tear until it is done.